Welcome to History Explained, where we illuminate the past to better understand our present. I'm your guide for this weekly dose of 7 days under 7 minutes. Today is Sunday, June 8, 2025. As we do every Friday, we explore economic milestones, those transformative decisions, policies, and events that have shaped how wealth is created, distributed, and contested around the world. This week, from June 2nd to June 8th, we reflect on major developments and historic echoes that reveal just how tightly our financial systems are woven into the fabric of global power. We begin with the June 5th release of the U.S. jobs report, which showed surprising resilience in the labor market. With unemployment holding steady at 3.9% and job growth exceeding forecasts, markets reacted with cautious optimism. However, the report also reignited debate around wage stagnation and the Federal Reserve's path on interest rates. Economists drew comparisons to the late 1990s boom, raising the question, are we on the cusp of another expansion, or overlooking structural imbalances that threaten long-term stability? Also on June 5th, the world observed World Environment Day, and economic policy was part of the conversation. In Brussels, the European Commission unveiled a new Green Finance Directive, aimed at tightening ESG, environmental, social, and governance, reporting standards and penalizing greenwashing. The policy, which builds on decades of work tracing back to the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreement, signals a more aggressive regulatory approach to climate-linked finance, aligning capital markets with sustainability goals more directly than ever before. In China, a June 6th announcement from the People's Bank of China unveiled a targeted interest rate cut for small business loans, intended to boost struggling local economies and counter youth unemployment. Analysts noted the move's historical echoes. China has often used selective monetary policy, rather than broad stimulus, to fine-tune sectors without overheating the economy. It's a nod to how central banks across the world are increasingly turning to targeted tools in place of traditional levers. Meanwhile, in Africa, the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, Secretariat in Accra released a June 3 progress report showing a 15% increase in intra-African trade year-over-year. While still in its early stages, AFCFTA is being hailed as the most ambitious economic integration project on the continent since the formation of the African Union. Economists are calling it a potential EU moment for Africa, reflecting how regionalism, when built on infrastructure and trust, can unlock untapped economic power. On June 2nd, Argentina's central bank shocked investors by hiking interest rates by 300 basis points in an attempt to control inflation, which is still projected to exceed 120% this year. The move came just days after the IMF warned of persistent vulnerabilities in Latin American economies. With echoes of past crises in the 1990s and 2001, Argentina's fiscal tightening highlights the enduring dilemma facing developing economies: how to restore credibility without stifling growth or provoking social unrest. June 6th marked the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and while most reflections focused on its military significance, economic historians also pointed to its role in the birth of the post-war global economic order. D-Day didn't just liberate Europe, it paved the way for institutions like the IMF, World Bank, and later, the WTO. As trade disputes rise and multilateralism is questioned, this anniversary served as a reminder that global economic cooperation was born from the ashes of conflict, not the halls of quiet negotiation alone. In the tech world, on June 4th, several multinational companies joined the "I for Fair Markets" initiative, pledging transparency in algorithmic pricing, especially in digital advertising and e-commerce. Regulators in the US, EU, and India praised the move as a voluntary step toward addressing the rising concern over AI-driven price discrimination, a modern echo of antitrust fears that shaped the breakups of Standard Oil and AT&T. And finally, the week closed with a major cultural economic moment, the 75th anniversary of George Orwell's 1984 on June 8th. Publishers across Europe released special economic editions analyzing the book's warnings about surveillance, propaganda, and authoritarianism, not just in politics, but in data markets and behavioral economics. The conversation centered on the commodification of attention and privacy in a digital economy where the consumer is no longer just the buyer, but the product. From interest rate decisions in Beijing and Buenos Aires to new global trade frameworks and regulatory shifts in green finance, this week reminds us that the economy is not just numbers and policies, it's a narrative. one written daily by the actions of central bankers, entrepreneurs, lawmakers, and yes, ordinary people navigating systems larger than themselves. Thank you for joining us for this exploration of economic milestones. If you found this perspective valuable, subscribe and share the episode with others who track the pulse of history through the markets. Up next, our Saturday episode, where we dive into military history and the battles that defined the fate of nations. Until then, I'm your guide for History Explained, where understanding yesterday is the key to navigating tomorrow.